Hey all, Brendan here. Welcome back to the channel. Our Corrado has sprung a leak, and it is the thermostat housing. So we are going to have to dive into replacing that. Let me show you everything that is involved with this oh so fun process. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get into it. So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about doing here, on the Corrado, of course, everything is more difficult. To drain all the coolant and flush it, the upper radiator hose is right here, no problem. The lower one, you can see, is under the battery tray down in there, and it is not really accessible with the front fascia in place. So if we go under here, all this stuff is in the way. So we're gonna have to remove the bumper, at least all of this stuff, in order to be able to reach up into there to get where we need to get to be able to flush the coolant system. So there's a lot in the way, you know, special race car stuff, the cooler that we've got mounted there to the vent, yeah, functional vents. So anyway, good times. And over here, this is what we're going to be installing. These are the cast with some machining parts that are going to replace the plastic that was on there. So this part sits against the block, or the head itself, and then this holds the thermostat and clamps in like so. And the kit from Euro Tuning comes with all of the new hardware, and O-rings and gaskets that you need to accomplish it. And I got the thermostat as well. So this is the low temperature thermostat, because I live in Southern California, so that's all gonna go on there.
20 minutes later.
And just like that, she's apart. So we've got the bumper off. There's obviously a lot of cleanup work I need to do while I'm in here, but now we've got a lot better shot at getting to what we need to get to do the draining, and then we can take off just a few more things here. We should be able to access that without any major issue. Right now I'm just debating whether I want to actually remove the battery, just to have a little bit more room for tools, but I think once this hose is out of the way, I'll probably be able to get right in there and it should be fine.
5 minutes later.
Yep, that's some pretty nasty stuff. So we have removed the upper radiator hose so that we can flush through this and out through the bottom radiator hose, which is just pointed down into that pan underneath. And then through this top. Normally what you want to do is remove the thermostat and flush through, but in most engines it goes through the thermostat and then out into the radiator, and you could do it as a closed loop. But by removing the lower radiator hose, that doesn't go to anywhere. So I can flush right from the coolant bubble. It'll flush the head, the water pump, everything inside there, and come right out there and drain down into the pan underneath. And then I can flush through the top of the radiator here and out the bottom. And because removing just the thermostat and replacing all this is a lot of work, and we don't need to do that. We're going to be removing this housing in just a few minutes, replacing that. But in the meantime, we are flushing it with water, just regular hose water. So this is the first flush. As we fill up the system, you're going to see it come out of that thermostat housing right there. And the idea is we want to flush it until it's running pretty clean. And it's already there. It's already pretty clean. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Way better than it was. And again, this is coolant that's been in here for 30,000 miles or so. So it's in about 10 years. Usually you want to flush your coolant about every 2 to 4 years. I don't know anybody that actually does that, but that is the recommendation. So it's coming out nice and clear. We do have coolant system cleaner that we are going to run through as well. I'm not sponsored or anything. I'm trying a couple of different ones. We got this Prestone stuff that we're going to run through with flush number 1. And then we are going to run, I don't know where I put it, but we've got another, I think it's Blue Devil. We're going to run that through for flush number 2. And when we do that, we're going to be flushing with distilled water for the first flush. The second flush, we're actually going to put the 50-50 coolant mix in with the radiator flush just to clean other stuff out there and make sure that there's protectant and lubricant for the water pump and all the internal seals. And then the third time after we empty the system, then we will add the final mix of our 50-50 coolant. Only use the European pink stuff, by the way. Do not put in the universal green stuff. If you see green coolant in a European car, it's wrong. And I don't care what the bottle says about it's compatible with every vehicle. It will cause sludge in the system. It will cause blockages in your radiator. It is a major problem. Do not do that. So we're going to continue doing a couple more flushes and we will come back to you. You can see this is not how European coolant is supposed to look. This is the result of, you can see the greenish tinge along the edges. A long time ago, someone made a mistake and put the wrong stuff in here, and there's still a little bit of residual in the system. Even though this has had the proper coolant in it for 30,000 miles, it's got some rust and scale and nastiness. It should be a nice pink, and instead it's this rusty orange. So this is why we flush. Get all the rust out of the system, all the contaminants. We're going to come back and see as it gets clearer and clearer with every flush.
5 minutes later.
Here's flush number 2. You can see the color is a lot better. It's getting all that rust and nastiness out. It's still pretty gross, but it is improving over the last batch. So let's do our third flush, and it should come out much better.
5 minutes later.
Okay, third flush, and it's looking way better. I can actually see through to the bottom of the drip pan here. So that is a lot of stuff that came out of that system. Very glad that we did this, but now it is time to move on to changing the thermostat housing. So there's just a couple of bolts that hold it in place. Let me do a little switcheroo here. So I'm going to... So those two bolts right there, I think they're both 5mm Allen bolts. Those are what hold this on. So we'll go remove those, and then we should be good. Now the fan connector here is kind of in the way, and you can see that because the connector itself has broken in several places, there's been some interesting repair work done to keep it all together. We'll see if I'm able to get it out clear without messing with this, but hopefully we can. Yeah, let's give that a whirl and see how it goes. There is actually a third bolt way back up inside here. See it back behind there. That is the other one we got to get to. So a long extension will get us there. Incidentally, using an extension to get the bottom one underneath this is a good strategy. There's enough wiggle room on this that you can move it around and get under there. Get that third bolt out, and it looks like we should have enough room to pull this out of there without having to mess with this fan connector. So it's tight. There's other stuff in the way, but I think it's doable. So we gotta get this hose. Yeah, get this hose off of here, off the bottom. I already loosened the connector. And look at that. Okay, great. Fabulous. Free and clear. Alright, let's switch the sensors over. Normally I would say replace the sensors if you're starting fresh, but these are all new sensors. They were replaced really recently, so I'm just going to replace the O-rings as I swap them over to the new housing. Here you can see the where that gasket failed and was leaking against the side of the head, and yeah, you can eyeball a little bit of warpage. You can see it's definitely dipping in a few spots. So this had its time. Oh, you can see the warpage right along the seam there. probably leaking out of that part of the thermostat. So yeah, a few spots where this had failed. So with the metal version, hopefully that will not be the case. So we'll swap everything over to that. And then over on the motor side itself, you see a lot of corrosion right along the head. We're definitely going to clean that up so we start with a fresh surface when we mount the new housing to that. So we get a great seal. And not taking my chances with anything, even though I've got new seals, new O-rings. We're going to be using some Permatex water pump and thermostat housing sealant in addition, because I don't want to have to deal with this again for a long time. These are the newer style clips versus the old metal ones that worked in this thermostat. I actually prefer the metal ones because these tend to warp and cause issues, but I think the new thermostat was actually machined for the newer style clips, so we're going to use those. I think the name of the game here is we want to get this assembly in place first, and then we will attempt to deal with the various hose connections that go onto it once it's secure. The only one that I'm a little worried about is this one's kind of a pain in the neck, so I think I'll put this one on first, and then I will start putting it all in place. Okay, mischief managed with the bolts. I found out the trick is you got to put in that bolt first. So it's exactly the opposite order of taking it out. Get that bolt in first, and then you can pivot this whole assembly up to get the other two bolts in place. So that is now mounted. We just need to reconnect the hoses and the sensors and refill with coolant, and then we can run another flush through with everything in place, and we should be well on our way. All right, new thermostat housing, seals, O-rings, hoses all in place, everything's snug down. Time to start filling it up with coolant, and then of course check for leaks. We'll probably do some cleanup down here before we put it all back together because and then let her warm up, burp the system, and we should be good to go. And of course, because the water pump is involved here, we are going to have to turn on the system to circulate all this through the radiator and burp all of the air out. Yes, we have a leak, a real steady one, and it looks like it is the crack pipe. So I wasn't going to replace the crack pipe while I was doing all this, but it is leaking at that joint of the crack pipe and the new housing. So it looks like I'm going to have to get one of those and redo this. So hey, an extra coolant flush for free. Well, not for free, but yeah. At least we've done this. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn on the system to run it through and make sure that that's the only leak.
But wait, there's more.
I think we might be in good shape. We're coming up to temperature. Thermostat should be open. The fans have run a couple of times and we're burping all the air out of the system. She hasn't run in a while, of course, so that the hydraulic lifters are recharging, but that leak from the crack pipe seems to have settled down. So maybe it just wasn't seated completely, and as it was heating up, it actually seated. I don't see any more leaks down in there, so fingers crossed, we might be in good shape. I'm gonna keep running it, and we'll just see what takes place. But right now, it's looking pretty good. Getting all that air out of the system.
2 hours later.
And just like that, she is back together and relatively clean-ish. So I'll towel her off, but she's good to go. She ran her up to temperature. I'm going to go take her for a road test, and hopefully everything is good. I have been driving the car now for 150 miles. I've gone up inclines. We drove up into the mountains a little bit, make sure that the car was under load for a long period of time to get the oil and the cooling system nice and hot, and we're doing pretty well. The leaks seem to be done. I think we're good with the cooling system, so mischief managed on that front. I'm very happy about that. Conveniently, because one of my other cars, the R32, it's getting a little long in the tooth. She's 19 years old, and I was thinking that it was going to be time to do the water pump on that pretty soon, just because 19 years old, original water pump. And sure enough, Friday, when I started the car first thing in the morning, getting ready to head to work, the water pump let go right there in our driveway. So that is going to need to be taken care of, which means the R32 is going to be down for a brief period of time. Ironically, or maybe not ironically, providentially, I had already ordered all the parts that I need to do the water pump, because I thought anytime now this water pump is going to go. It wasn't making noise or anything. It was just, it's that time. So I've already got the water pump, I've already got the belt, the tensioner, everything that we need to do, and it's going to be some process, because it's definitely a grocery list of while you're in there projects. You have to remove the motor mount on that side of the motor on the R32 in order to fix it. So I'm gonna do the BFI motor mounts while I'm in there, and then there might be some other things I need to attend to while I'm in there. Now, of course, the Corrado has a grocery list of things that need addressing, because she's a 30-year-old Corrado and 208,000, almost 209,000 miles on her. I don't anticipate hitting 300,000 on this car like I did with my last Corrado, but you never know. We'll see what time may tell, but there is a list of things to do, so the Corrado project is not over. We've got many, many more things to deal with on this car. Some of them are just for fun. Some of them really need to be dealt with, and we will cover it all together. So thank you for continuing to bear in there with me with these adventures. If you would hit that like button and maybe even subscribe to the channel, that would definitely help me out a lot, and I will bring you some new content. Right now we're doing every Friday is what we're aiming for. Every Friday afternoon, new video. So look forward to seeing you next time. God bless, and let me know in the comments, what projects are you working on? See you soon.
And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back.